And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal discussion about Star Trek. And today we're talking about row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And it is but a dream. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you. I'm here on the planet of galactic peace,
Nimbus 3.
Nimbus 3.
And this is our first time where we're like together.
Yeah, exactly. In the same
space. It's extraordinary.
It is.
Well, there is a documentary that we did.
Oh, that's right.
Many years ago.
That's right. Was it years ago?
It's now years ago. It was because I hadn't yet.
Oh, we can't see Spock.
Yeah, Spock wasn't here. Our friend Spock is joining us today.
Yes.
You can actually.
Oh, that's better. Yeah, just cover me. It's fine.
Well, no, block the microphone. There we go.
There we go. Now we have to speak into the Spock.
All right, so today I'm also honored to have you over on the eve of my 40th birthday revels.
Happy birthday!
So and I just want to say I thank you to everyone who supports Starfleet Boy. It's because of you that we're here, and I feel really grateful. And being 40 kind of feels like Star Trek 2.
Like, surely the best of times.
Surely the best of times, indeed.
Beware of Romulans bearing gifts.
Yes, this is true. Although, if you can hand it to me, I would like to show the audience what a cool... The Doctor got me this really cool behind the scenes of Star Trek Discovery, and I'm very happy. I can't wait to read it, but I did notice some interesting language in here already, which I want to point out, which kind of corroborates what's obvious, but it's just nice to see it written down somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. It's like hold on. Well,
but the Klingons, right?
Well, no, it's this part here. Oh. It says very clearly, iconic designs reimagined. Star Trek Discovery is a reimagining of Star Trek. So as far as I'm concerned, it's confirmed. It's not a continuation. It is set in the Prime timeline. I can deal with that, but it's a reimagined Prime timeline. So there you have it.
Prime B.
No, just reimagined.
As Prime B.
Come with me and you'll be in a world reimagined.
It's going to be a musical episode?
I actually would not mind if Star Trek did
not doing a musical
episode. Those of you who have anything to do with Star Trek Discovery, if you happen to be watching or listening to this, I say yes to the musical episode. I'm all for it. And if I'm not mistaken, a certain actor among your cast has a lot of experience with musicals, and that would be Anthony Rapp, who plays Paul Stamets.
He was on Broadway, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Well, the first time I heard of, I know he's a long and illustrious career, but the first time I heard of him was the musical Rent.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Right. Cool.
Excuse me.
All right. Well, we're not talking about Rent today.
No, we're talking about Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. This is one of our special episodes where we're veering away from our normal discussions about Star Trek. Oh, that reminds me. Hey Siri, play the soundtrack to Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Okay, here's the album Star Trek V, The Final Frontier by Jerry Goldsmith.
Amazing. One of the best scores in the series, truly.
It's a really good score. Well, Jerry Goldsmith, may he rest in peace, was fantastic.
Yeah. What were you saying about how this is reminding people, hey?
Yeah. Also, hey Siri, lower volume to 10%. I'll just be in the background as a din. I thought it was interesting because since the motion picture, we hadn't heard this theme, and of course, Next Generation was in full swing. What was it? Season 2, season 3?
Yeah, something like that.
Somewhere along those lines.
Actually, I can check.
Great. The Doctor has brought all his materials. Oh, look at this! The 20. I have this somewhere. I don't know where mine is, but the 25th anniversary special.
I know where mine is.
Well, yeah, it's in my hands. That's so cool.
So this was printed at the time of the printing of this. There were only 5 Star Trek movies.
Dang! Look at all the Star Trek: The Next Generation issues you could have ordered. That's so cool. Yeah. Subscribe to this. I don't know what happened to all my TNG magazines.
Oh my god! I would love to. You should look for them.
So it says join us for the 4th season, which is the season we're on right now. How perfect!
Hey,
that's really good. We're
wow.
We're actually discussing season 4. We're nearly at the end.
We're
nearly at the end of that season, so that's fantastic. Oh, look at all the cool. Hey, I want to talk to all the Star Trek memorabilia manufacturers out there. It just seems like back then the quality of the pins was a little bit more superb than it is today, and I was wondering if there's any reason for that. They just seem shinier.
They did. They really did.
They're like really good. I don't mind this one. It's pretty cool, but it just doesn't have the weight.
Look at the Star Trek 5 ones.
Yep. Oh yeah,
with
that's
Galileo.
Really nice.
With that,
show
Galileo.
The audience here. So for those of you who are just listening, we're looking at. You could have ordered a ton of merch, and like these special edition magazines that they printed were always a great way to sell them to you. And I do actually. Whoops,
there goes
Spock. I do actually have some of these command, like some of these. I've got to find them. I have some of these branch pins. I never got the executive insignia pins, which look really awesome.
They do. Look how this one's already sold out.
Yeah, I bet.
That's
I
cool.
bet we could find these at the conventions.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very cool.
Hopefully for a reasonable price.
And look, they even reference Journey to Babel to show you Sarek because there's a quick scene. Oh, that's good. Really neat reference point there. Wow. So I think we should just jump right into the summary real quick. So Star Trek V takes place not too long after Star Trek IV. Finally, after this, like, I guess you could call it a triptych or a trilogy of sorts that started in Star Trek II and ends in Star Trek IV. The crew of the Enterprise get a little bit of a break and are on shore leave. Some of them are on shore leave. Scotty and Uhura are supervising the Enterprise's, the new Enterprise's repairs because apparently the Yorktown had a lot of problems. I don't know what's going on at this in this era in Starfleet, but you know, pretty much everything in the ship is falling apart. Nothing works. It's a kind of a weird thing. It is funny, but it doesn't make a lot of sense when it comes to just like, you know.
It doesn't, unless you were to say, well, they just wanted to sort of present the ship to them in the wake of the events of Star Trek IV. But, you know, because it was going to be the Yorktown, and then it was a quick, like, wait a minute, let's call it the Enterprise.
Yeah, let's say,
you know, honor these guys.
Yeah,
it was all seat of the pants.
But you're telling me that a fully, like, furbished, completed ship has all these problems?
Apparently it was not. Well, yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, nothing on the ship works, and it's ridiculous.
It is kind of ridiculous, but it is funny too. So I get the I get it from the perspective of the gags. Anyways, Kirk and Spock. Well, actually, the movie opens with like a dirt farmer on Nimbus 3, and he's farming dirt, and then
it was a moisture farm.
A moisture.
That was my impression.
Maybe
I don't know.
Moisture evaporators.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't see any of them there.
Yeah.
Anyways, on Tatooine, aka Nimbus 3, we see a shadowy figure riding in the background, approaching this farmer, and so he prepares to defend himself in his little his little plot of land that it's all he has, and the shadowy figure uses some kind of like powers to subdue him and then allow him to release his inner pain and turmoil. And all of a sudden, the farmer is filled with joy. It seems like he has no troubles anymore, and he asks what it can do to repay this shadowy figure. And the figure reveals himself and takes off his hood, and we find out that it's a Vulcan. And it causes a lot of delight for the farmer.
A laughing
Vulcan. And then we go to shore leave, and we see Captain Kirk climbing Yosemite,
right?
Mount El Capitan in Yosemite. And by the way, interesting thing, and I meant to look it up and I forgot the name of the climber, but what is depicted in the movie is Captain Kirk is free climbing Mount El Capitan. So he has no gear or ropes. It's just him in the mountain,
right?
Him in the rock face. That ascent, well, Captain Kirk doesn't complete it, but the idea of doing that is something that didn't actually come to fruition until just recently. Just last year, a young mountaineer who is now he's the first to do it.
So he holds the record.
He holds the record. Was the first to climb El Capitan. Really cool. And I don't remember seeing any references to Star Trek V, but I'd be curious.
They should have invited Shatner. At like whatever ceremony they had.
Shatner should have been waiting.
He could have worn that outfit.
Shatner should have been waiting at the top of at the summit for him.
Yeah,
is what it should have been.
Oh God! Do you have tissues, by the way?
Yeah, somewhere over here.
Do you?
Oh, you know what? You're gonna have to excuse yourself and go get them.
Oh, I'm gonna. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll keep going with the summary, and then you can just go to the bathroom if you want to. There's like something
off camera here.
Oh,
sorry.
No, it's okay, audience. This is a casual and informal. We want to take this moment to remind the audience it's a casual and informal show. We try to be as pro as possible, but it's not all, but sometimes it's a little, you gotta blow your nose.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thanks. Thank you.
But we're both bearded. You've got a goatee, but I've got a full beard, which I'm considering getting rid of. Anyways, Spock appears all of a sudden while Captain Kirk is climbing the face of El Capitan. And they get into a very humorous conversation. Meanwhile, Bones is on the ground level watching the whole scene unfold through some very cool binoculars, which I think we should totally have this technology today because it's not very very difficult to create, and it might already exist. But anyways, he's a nervous wreck because he's like,
playing games with life.
Exactly. So Spock's talking to Captain Kirk, distracting him, and they get into a typical type of argument, and then Kirk slips and starts falling, and terrible special effects.
Bugs Bunny, I'd say.
Yeah, terrible special effects sequence that doesn't stand the test of time. I'm not sure it stood the time. I'm not sure.
It was never of its time.
I'm not sure that it was cutting edge at the time.
It reminded me of the scene in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where Bob Hoskins is falling.
Oh my goodness!
And then he's got Bugs Bunny on one side and Mickey Mouse on the other.
That's right.
That's what the scene reminded me of. I was expecting Bugs Bunny to show up, but of course in that movie it's meant to look cheesy but
it wasn't really a good sign.
No,
but it's easily forgivable.
And in the first.
Like few minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Easily forgivable though, because again, the actors save the day with their humor. Spock catches him, and then we go to a really kind of a deep little moment where they sing "Row, Row, Row Your Boat" at the campfire. Spock presents marshmallows, which are marshmallows, but he calls them marshmallows. And by the way, that marshmallow dispenser was another thing that you could buy at the time.
Yeah, they sold it.
And I had one, and I don't have it anymore. But it was a wonderful thing you could put Kraft's made it, if I'm not mistaken.
Weird.
It was branded by Kraft. So yeah, they have a deep discussion, and this is where Dr. McCoy is finally like, what the hell's the matter with you, Jim? And he said, and Captain Kirk arrogantly proclaims, even as I was falling, I knew I would not die. And they're like, oh yeah, I thought
he was the only one who was immortal.
And it turns out that Captain Kirk has a strong belief that as long as he's with his friends, that things are going to be all right, because he's always known that he would die alone. And just a little fast forward to our Star Trek Generations discussion, the prophecy actually does come true.
It does.
In a real sense.
It does. It adds resonance to Generations.
Yeah, in a real sense, Captain Kirk is alone when he receives the death blow. Captain Picard is by his side as he's dying.
But he's a friend of his.
But he's not, he's not his very poignant, very interesting tie-in too. Good job, Star Trek, for getting that one right. So while this is going on, we then cut back to the Enterprise, and we receive then we go back to like Nimbus, and we see Cybok, and somehow he's amassed an army at this point.
That's true.
He raids the city, Paradise City as it's called, a walled-in city.
Yeah.
And
Guns N' Roses.
Take me down to the Paradise City. I just realized that
was a missed opportunity there.
No, I'm sure it was like a reference. It's a hidden reference there, where the dirt is brown
and the girls are pretty.
And the girls have 3. Never mind. That's not fit for broadcast. The cat girls have interesting anatomies. And so we go to this planet, to the city, and it just so happens that for some reason on Nimbus 3, the Federation has a permanently stationed representative. So does
no less than
David Warner, an amazing
There's nothing in this movie, and it bothers me so much. The great David Warner.
He's such a great actor. It's funny that he.
Why did he do this movie?
I think he must have been friends with William Shatner. That's a really good question.
I don't know if that's really necessarily true.
This is a really good question for Larry Nemesek.
Yeah,
this is like something that I think that,
let me tell you,
I've
looked through volumes of, and I can't find an answer to why David Warner, other than he just really likes Star Trek. He is a Star Trek fan.
I know,
just like he's a Doctor Who fan.
So
he just wanted to.
I'm sure that's what it was.
But still, God, that part, he did nothing. Barely speaks.
And he has a great voice too. But I guess he
could have been God.
He could have been God. He could have also been Cybok. He could have played Cybok.
He could have been Cybok.
He could have been Cybok. Although Lawrence Luckinbill, who we're also wondering what happened to him, does an amazing job as Cybok. So anyways, there's a Klingon Terran, which I like that they refer to Earthlings as Terrans, and a Romulan, and they're all just kind of shooting the breeze. I don't know what's going on Nimbus 3. Like,
I don't know.
It's a hellhole of a planet. It's kind of shitty. You have these 3 kind of like they look like they're not, the Romulan looks like she's brand new to the assignment, but you could tell that David Warner and the Klingon, the Klingon ambassador, they just drink alcohol all day long. That's all that's going on.
Yeah.
It's like,
they just sent him there almost as like to get him out of the way because they embarrass their respective governments in some fashion. And then why is she there? I don't know. Maybe, again, she was the mistress of somebody, and
that would be an interesting thing to find out the backstory on those 3 characters.
You kind of sprung the Star Trek 5 on me, so I didn't have a chance to read the novelization.
Oh, there is a novelization.
There is a novelization.
Oh, very
nice. As you're giving the the summary here, I'm going to go ahead and consult the
comic book,
the movie special.
What?
Of Star Trek 5.
Yeah, let's hold that up to the screen here. For those at home, it's like a comic book. It is a comic book. It is a comic book, and it's DC. I didn't know DC had the license.
Both. Star Trek's one of those properties that everybody's had them. Malibu, DC, Marvel, and right now I think who has the rights to it now? I don't recall, but somebody else has it. Oh, that one, Sulu. George Takei wrote it, I think. That issue.
Yeah, it says it right here. It says a very special tale by George Takei, in parentheses, as if you need to be told, Mr. Sulu, Peter David, and Gray Morrow.
Who doesn't know who George Takei is?
It's so funny. This is his pre-internet fame days. Oh, and this was written by Peter David, James Fry, and Arne Starr. I don't know who Arne Starr or James Fry are.
Well, those are probably the artists. Peter David's definitely the writer.
The writer, yeah. Peter David, wow.
Well, he's a huge
Star Trek fan, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice. So we have... So the army comes in and invades, and they capture the city, and then this prompts the Federation to deploy the Enterprise. So Kirk and crew they have to end their shore leave prematurely, and Kirk is kind of even in disbelief. I kind of thought that was an interesting thing where he's like, really, there's no other ship in the quadrant.
Yeah, I know, right?
And the admiral, played by Harve Bennett, says, other ships, yes, but no experienced commanders. We need James T. Kirk on this one. And you hear Captain Kirk going, oh, please, which I thought
even Kirk doesn't buy this plot. You know, it's like, come on, are you serious?
He's like, really?
Yeah,
he's
not
done.
Even he believes it.
Captain Kirk's done at this point. You could tell he's kind of like ready to retire. He's ready to go meet Antonia on the farm.
Well, I don't know about that Antonia reference, but
you know Antonia, she's
yeah, but I don't know if that's necessarily happening in that scene there. But by the way, I just as you're moving along, there's a little bit more hostility portrayed in the comic book between the Klingon and the Romulan representatives in the comic book.
Oh, that would have been nice.
Yeah, they're actually kind of going at it here.
Let's see that here. Oh yeah, it looks like Cord has spilled his wine and he's got his fists in the air here, and yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it seems like they actually are there to discuss something specific. The movie doesn't really.
It was lost on us.
It was lost in the movie.
It was lost in the film.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a director's cut sitting around somewhere for Star Trek V. Oh, they were at Mount Rushmore in the comics. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
So Sulu and Chekhov, when they're on the planet in that scene in the comic, it implies they were at Mount Rushmore. Anyways, so the Enterprise is off on its way into action. They get to Nimbus 3. They mount a rescue effort.
Hey, you're skipping the Klingons.
Oh, and meanwhile we have a Klingon cruiser with a very young and eager commander, Captain Claw, who wants to engage a Federation starship. So he's looking for any chance.
And what does he shoot?
What is the Pioneer?
Pioneer 10.
Pioneer 10? I think so. It was the Pioneer space probe.
Right. Not the Voyager.
Not the Voyager, as people think. Yeah, Voyager is already way out there and found V'ger. Became V'ger.
Right. V'ger, right.
We don't know what the fate of Voyager 2 is.
No. No, we don't. Future Star Trek films will answer that question. So I'm sure.
So this Klingon is also headed for Nimbus 3. It's just, they're heading there. The Enterprise is there, on its way there. They go down to the planet to distract the guards. Uhura strips down naked and sings a song, and it works.
There she is right there.
Oh, look at that.
She is naked.
Yeah,
she is.
It's a very interesting moment in the film. Anyway, she does that, and then they manage to steal the unicorns. That the
unicorns.
They
do have horns on them. That's right.
Unicorns.
They're
like
unicorns.
Purple space unicorns.
Yes, that is true.
So they steal the unicorns and ride into battle, and there's a really great kind of like sort of action sequence.
Yeah.
Captain Chekhov is trying to distract Sybok. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and but unfortunately, no dice.
No.
They get captured.
Don't forget the little fight with the The cat lady.
Yes, even the cat, the interesting cat stripper with the interesting anatomy, pounces. I guess you would say pounce, right? That's exactly.
That's what Shatner does. Kirk does. He just. She
pounces onto Kirk and with like some amazing strength.
Amazing strength.
Which we see again in Star Trek 6 because he leaps like
the Olympic high jump.
It's like it's an insane leap that he does to get to that podium.
Is he human?
I don't know.
Maybe he's hiding something.
There's something going on. Yeah. But anyways, Kirk tosses her and then his hands kind of just freeze in this position. It's a very strange scene, and I guess she's like knocked unconscious or whatever. But shortly after that, they're thwarted. Sybok and a couple of his yawning here. It's not a good sign.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we gotta pick it up here. Pick up the.
There's a deleted scene in the comic book.
Oh.
Somebody, one of the horsemen, approaches Spock and says, "You're dead." And wait, no, this is in the movie because I do know he does the Vulcan nerve pinch on the horse.
Yeah,
which a lot of people thought it was cheesy, but I don't remember there's dialogue exchanged. But apparently, what the guy on the horse says is, "You're dead." He does a nerve pinch, and then Spock goes, "The hell I am."
Well, I mean, he does say in Star Trek 6, I've been dead before.
Right.
So
but he goes, yeah, the hell, yeah.
That's interesting.
They should have.
That would have been nice. That would have been
a
nice touch. It's true. Yeah. So wait. Yes. So they steal the shuttlecraft. They are trying to get on to the Enterprise before the Klingon ship intercepts them. Right. And so they have this moment where they distract the Klingon commander by letting him know that Kirk is on the shuttle. The shuttle goes into high speed and crashes into the oddly tiny Enterprise hangar bay, which, if it's the same configuration as the 1701 is, more or less, somehow the hangar deck really shrunk from that movie to this one. But anyway,
and of course we've seen the hangar bay previously in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
And that's it.
Well, and of course we saw in the original show too.
Right, but it looks like the original show's hangar bay. Actually, it looks that small.
I think even the original show
might be a little. It was a little bigger. It's true. You're right. Yeah. It is oddly small.
It is.
This hangar bay.
Yeah.
Well, and you could tell it's just a redressed cargo bay from TNG.
Right.
All the sets
which are using smaller
ships. Yeah, it's true. Well, that's just one of the small hangar decks on the Enterprise D, which, okay, fine, you save a little money here and there. It's all right, I get it. So they get aboard the ship. Sybok basically tries to convince Spock several times, even on the planet and here, to join him, but Spock refuses. They throw the captain, Dr. McCoy, and Spock in the brig.
Oh wait, but you're forgetting the key moment.
Oh, that's right. There's a nice little fight scene, and the gun slides out, and Spock picks it up, and he has a moment there to stop the whole thing.
Kirk orders him,
and he orders him to shoot Sybok.
Shoot him!
Yeah, and Spock can't do it because I think something which I've neglected to tell the audience, even though you've probably already seen Star Trek 5 and you know this, is that Sybok is Spock's half brother.
You mean his brother?
Oh my goodness. But anyways,
Sybok is also the son of Sarek.
Oh, I neglected to say it because we hadn't gotten to that scene yet. Anyways, it's in the brig that it's revealed that it's his half brother.
Right.
Kirk is beside himself. He just doesn't know what to do. He's a little frustrated.
Yep.
He's really annoyed at Spock. It's actually quite nice. I like all that interaction between them. Yeah. And meanwhile, Scotty, which I kind of wonder, this is kind of a neat thing in Star Trek Into Darkness. The same way Scotty's already aboard the, Scotty's kind of sneaky like that. He's the guy, the unsuspecting guy that kind of does that. So once again, the ship's under, there's danger on the ship, and Scotty seems to figure out a way, and he breaks them out of the brig.
Right.
Which is a fun
using Morse code.
Using Morse code.
Yeah.
And they make their way to, I guess it's like the Enterprise A version of 10 Forward.
Right.
To override and take over the ship.
In order to do that, they have to go.
Oh, they have that whole adventure through the turbo shaft.
Those rocket boots.
Right.
Now, can we just pause for a moment and talk about the jet boots?
Yeah, sure.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, we don't see anybody use jet boots ever again.
Yeah. Until Star Trek Discovery. In fact, her boots look kind of like
says it all, folks. Says it all. Thank you. You've made my point for me. All right.
I have to say though, I thought the design of the jet boots was really cool.
It was very retro. I thought.
I did think that.
And then it looked retro.
I did think it's like, okay, the Yosemite scene. It makes sense. Spock's trying to get up there as quickly as possible.
But why are they so conveniently there when they're in the turbo shaft?
No, I think there's a cutout scene where they go and get them.
I'm looking at this and I don't see a cutout scene, sir.
No, like a cut scene. Like it's not even in the comic book. They had to have gone to get them at some point. I mean, Spock's not just always wearing them.
No, I know, but it's just they're just conveniently there.
Now, what I think would have been much more interesting is if they had magnetic levitation.
That would have been cool
instead of a jet boot.
That would have been
because,
cool.
Jet boot implies fuel source.
Right. It doesn't make as much sense as what we saw in Star Trek 6.
Right.
Where we had
the mag
boots.
Yeah, exactly like that. So
that makes more sense.
It is a little weird to have a jet boot.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other issue there is how does it? I mean, the balance must be just insane, to keep your balance. It's like.
And Spock is so serene when he's using it, especially when he's next to the mountain. He's just kind of
He's just chilling. He's just chilling. And the other thing is, why don't we just see people flying around in jet boots?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
It's a little weird.
It's weird. I don't know where that came from.
Now, if we're going to theorize and try to defend their inclusion in the film, one might say that they are a prototype, and maybe because it looks like they do use Spock to test out technology, because he does mention earlier in the brig that when Starfleet was building the new brigs, they found the smartest person they could to try to break out of it, and he could not, and that was
maybe Spock even invented it, designed it.
It's good. That actually would be a really neat thing that older Spock just became an inventor, and there's a period of time where he's inventing tech. It'd be kind of a cool thing. Yeah,
that's true.
It's not a bad idea. It's really cool.
Yeah, I can dig it.
So anyways, unfortunately, again, they are unsuccessful in getting the ship, because Sybok finds them, and then he by the way, Sybok is trying to find, well, we find this out now, but anyways, anyway, Sybok's trying to get the ship to go to the center of the galaxy. That's the destination. Everyone's freaked out because they're like, you can't cross the Great Barrier.
Although they've already done it.
They crossed the Great Barrier leaving the galaxy in
the pilot.
No, but it's leaving the. This is there's another Great Barrier that's blocking you from getting to the center of the galaxy. So there's a Great Barrier that over
there,
and there's another one over there. You're stuck in your. Yeah. So. You're stuck in your galaxy.
But they're both referred to as the Great Barrier, which is what bothers me.
Yeah, it's true.
Can we at least say Great Barrier 1 and Great Barrier 2, or the Great Central Barrier and the Great Outer Barrier?
Yeah, and they're both kind of
nothing.
Not really.
I mean, the Enterprise just plows right through. Right, no problem.
There's really not a whole lot of bouncing around.
No,
the ship systems don't really. You would think there were more sparks flying and things like that, but really nothing happens. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So anyways, Sybok reveals, and this is kind of an interesting scene, McCoy's kind of deep dark secret pain, and then also Spock's deep dark secret pain.
And I have something to add.
Oh, go ahead.
Which is something I didn't learn until right now, because I've never really read the movie special. The movie special adds something to Spock's pain, which might make sense because when we were watching the movie, we were kind of like,
we didn't really learn anything.
Right. I mean, Kirk knew that there was issues with
Sarek.
With Sarek. I mean, we know it. But look what happens here. That's Sybok. And this is young Spock. A young banished Sybok, a young Vulcan male being begged by his adolescent half-brother to be allowed to accompany him into exile.
Oh, now that's...
But you could not, for you had chosen the Vulcan way. That is your pain. You begged to come with me, then come with me now. So that
would have been great.
That would have been great. So that shows the bond that they must have had as when they were,
and it would have, and it explains the because Leonard Nimoy you can kind of see this like shame almost,
right?
Hey,
why was that not in the movie?
Why, Mr. Shatner? We are petitioning now for a director's cut of Star Trek: The Final Frontier. Yeah, that's cool. Do you think
Peter David?
Do you think that Star Trek V could be saved? Like, is there footage sitting somewhere that?
No,
like...
well, the DVDs that came out, and of course they were transferred to Blu-ray. Those didn't have any deleted scenes. My understanding is that there are no deleted scenes.
That's impossible.
Now, I do know is that there was footage.
That's hogwash.
That balderdash.
Balderdash.
I do know that there were just special effects that were not finished, and so I think there are scenes, especially at the end, that was shot, but there are unfinished effects, and that was not included on the DVD. But then again, Paramount just probably doesn't care enough to.
I suspect that there is footage out there, because where would they get this material from for this comic book that you've got here?
Well, that's a question, and I mean, a lot of times these writers are dealing with an original version of the script. So just like with people who novelize the movies, they're working with something that is not finished, is not a finished product. So these things were in it at one point, and then they may not have shot it though. They may have gotten to the day of the thing. They're like, you know what, we don't have time, or this is slowing things down because everyone's all about pace. But I personally, I would have liked to have seen that.
That is pretty cool
if it existed.
So, anyways, all that aside, they get to Kirk. Sybok gets to Kirk, and Kirk refuses to address his pain. He says, in fact, that he believes that he is, or he needs his pain.
I need my pain.
He does not want to let go of his pain.
That's a great scene.
Great scene. And that's when Sybok reveals to him that the reason they're going to the center of the galaxy is because God himself or herself is calling to him, and that looks better than the special effects in the film. So anyways, God's calling to him, and that he's going to take the Enterprise to the center of the galaxy to meet God. And that's when I love William Shatner's reaction, the Kirk's reaction. It's all in his facial expression in that scene. It's true. It just looks like you're crazy. God, it's like you're batshit crazy. Like,
right, exactly. Exactly. This movie is kind of just a series of disbeliefs by Kirk. It's like he can't believe he's being sent out on this damn mission.
He can't believe
the ship is in this bad condition.
True.
He can't believe that Spock didn't shoot. And now the ultimate the ultimate will come next, but he can't believe this guy is stealing his ship because God told him to. He's like, what? It's just like
it's pretty crazy, and I would feel the same way as Captain Kirk would. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, that's
what
just
a bad day.
It's a really bad day. It's like
surely the worst, the worst of times.
The worst of times. So the ship plows through the Great Barrier, and everyone's freaked out, but like, there's not really a visual accompaniment that fits their freaking outedness. As far as the special effects are concerned, it just looks like someone poured paint into water, filmed it and called it a day.
That is the most accurate description
of the Great Barrier, right? Yeah, it's just blue paint and water.
You can do it at home, folks.
Yeah, but there is a nice moment where Captain Kirk does realize that they are going into the unknown, into the final frontier, if you will. And he touches the plaque. I love their forward lounge because it has a giant.
Yeah, the tech forward is really cool.
It has a classic sailing ship.
It has a nautical theme.
Really nice. It's got a wheel, an actual ship's wheel in there. And what do you call it? A steering wheel?
Yeah, it's like a steering wheel.
It's the steering wheel. I guess that's where it comes from. The steering wheel.
I steer the ship.
It's so funny.
We may be wrong. We're not nautical people here.
No, we aren't. We're not even experts.
We're not even experts on Star Trek, let alone.
There's very little that we actually know. But anyways, he then touches the plaque that says where no man has gone before. And this is the last appearance on film of that phrase, where no man has gone before.
Yeah, until you mentioned it.
Yeah, in Star Trek 6, he starts to say where no man, corrects himself and says where no one has gone before. And of course, we know Next Generation season 4, but from the start, Next Generation was rightfully so. Right. They said where no one has gone before. And I actually think that's neat because it was the first time, like this iconic thing that everyone knows, space, the final frontier, these are the voyages of Zorge of Enterprise, boldly going where no man has gone before. Right. But yeah, so he touches it, and I thought it was interesting that that's the last appearance of that. So it's kind of cool that it's on record that, that's there.
Let me ask you, do you remember any pushback on that?
Oh yeah, I was one of those people.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I was like,
oh, okay. Yeah. No, because I was going to say, I think today, if that were to happen, people would be like, oh my God, no,
no,
that would become political and all this and blah, blah, blah.
No, I remember.
But I don't remember any. I was like, oh, okay.
I remember the reason I felt, we want to finish giving the summary, but it's a good question, so I'm going to answer it now. The reason I felt like it was weird is because at the time it felt like mankind itself was a shortening of humankind.
Yes.
And then man was referred to as a shortening of mankind, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And I've heard people say womankind, mankind, it's like a thing. But so back then I was just like, guys, this is inclusive. Like mankind refers to men and women. But,
right.
I was wrong. Just like Captain Kirk says he was wrong about the Klingons.
Yeah.
I was wrong. I do think that language now, my opinion now is that actually it's the right thing to say where no one has gone before. I think it's actually an older reference to humans. One, royalty always speaks in that plural, one is not pleased or whatever. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's so I do think where no one is more inclusive and actually more correct in terms of, well, man does not include Andorians and Tellarites and other members of the Federation, but one is just referring to a one. So I do think the update was actually very appropriate when you really think about it.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
it's a good thing. But you one has their attachments, which is why I have I'm so bittersweet about Star Trek Discovery, because on the one hand I really enjoy the show, but in other respects it just is ripping out all these wonderful kind of attachments that I have to the original series and what I think Star Trek, that era of Star Trek should be like. So, right. But we're not going to talk about Star Trek Discovery.
You can hear Uhura singing in the background.
Oh, is that her? Hey Siri, raise the volume to 40%.
Well, it's actually not her. She wanted.
That's not Nichelle Nichols singing?
If I remember.
Because she sings.
If I remember her autobiography correctly, she was screwed over by Shatner.
and Kirk.
Hey
Siri, lower volume to 5%.
Because she did sing it, she recorded it, and they went with somebody else, and she didn't find out until she went to record. I guess she was doing her ADR.
But this version is not the version in the film. In the film, she's just singing with no accompaniment. This has like a disco background or whatever, right?
But she was meant to record a single.
But that's not her on this.
That's not her.
Hold on. Hey, Siri, raise the volume to 50%. Hey, Siri, who's singing on this track?
This is Jerry Goldsmith. This track is called The Moon's a Window to Heaven, performed and arranged by Hiroshima.
Hiroshima. The band Hiroshima is singing this.
So,
hey Siri, lower volume to 5%.
He had told her, it's obviously, she's a singer. So she.
Yeah, well, I love her album. Right. I have it actually, and she sings that song, Jean, Visionary Jean, and now we know, of course, it's sorted because they were lovers. But anyways.
She was supposed to have sung on that, and I think Shatner just, the impression that she got, or that at least I had from reading the caved in
to the studio, to like
maybe the studio, but just somebody else and said, put this band on or something, and she was there to record, I guess, her ADR, and then she's like, well, aren't we going to record, me singing as well? And Shatner told her, oh, I'm sorry, and she was upset.
Did she ever record it? I would love to hear her version.
I don't know. I don't think she did. I think it was this other.
We're gonna have to do some research. It's like a note that at some point this show is gonna get a database person. I used to say database boy, but now that we're talking about like
database one,
database one. So when we have a database person, it could be a male or female or Andorian.
Call that person data.
Yes, that's brilliant.
Data.
We need a data on the
data. Will you please find out?
One day we'll have data on. We'll have the budget for data, and we'll be able to actually look these things. We'll have a researcher basically. In fact, if anyone out there wants to be our research intern. We're not sure how we can pay you at this moment.
Actually, interns can be unpaid.
I know, but I just feel like there should be some compensation. Maybe we'll have like swag or something that we can, present to this person. But if there's anyone out there who wants to be a research intern for Starfleet Boy, just reach out to me at Sohail, SOHAIL, at starfleetboy.com. Or starfleetboy@gmail.com, whichever one you can remember.
Putting it out there.
Yeah, we need one. We need someone.
All right.
And so we would love to have that. Anyways, they finally crossed the Great Barrier, and there's a blue swirly glowing planet at the center of the galaxy, apparently not a black hole like current science has revealed to us. But a blue planet, and
black holes eating each other. Did you see that?
Yeah,
crazy.
It's a nutty place, the center of the galaxy. Yeah. Well, I mean, what did you think? Our galaxy's shaped like a spiral. I mean, what other? It looks like you're going down the drain. I mean, like it's kind of like a crazy looking thing. But anyways, but there is the Sombrero Galaxy, which is not shaped like a spiral, and it also probably has a giant black hole at the center of its.
What's it called?
The Sombrero Galaxy.
Oh, okay, yeah. Trump is probably going to want to put a wall there. Sorry, I just offended someone.
It's okay. Well, we had our. I'm not going to talk about it in detail because I don't want to give attention to that kind of thing. But we did have an interesting. We had an interesting email recently, didn't we?
Yeah. You did.
I did. Well, you're kind of like an accomplice here.
I'm an accomplice.
You're an accomplice.
Yeah, okay. I'm an accessory to this crime.
You're an accessory to this show. So, geez, we're doing this summary is 49 minutes long.
Dude, we gotta wrap up, man.
We gotta finish the summary, so we can even.
It's gonna be longer than the movie.
We're not even talking about the movie yet.
Jesus.
Holy shnikes, shiitake mushrooms there.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So finally
they
get to the planet, and God reveals himself, and he's this kind of crazy blue light creature thing, and he says bring the ship closer. So Kirk is very confused and says, excuse me.
I love the way he's
it's just like excuse me, what does God need with a starship? And that's when he's like pissed off. He shoots Kirk with lightning bolts out of his eyes. And then McCoy's like, holy crap. And then
he shoots with Spock.
He shoots Spock too. Yeah, because Spock's like, you didn't answer his question. God needed
what does God need with a starship?
And this is when Cybok becomes disillusioned because he's like, the god of Shakari would not do this.
Right.
Well, he apparently does. But anyways, Kirk, of course, jumps right into action and orders the Enterprise to launch a torpedo on their location.
Is it one or is it?
One torpedo.
It was one torpedo.
One torpedo. Okay. Yeah,
he still shouldn't have survived that.
That's true. Anyways, Cybok holds back this entity to give the crew enough time. He does get to say goodbye to Spock, which is a really nice little moment.
It was.
Kirk, Spock, and McCoy barely survive the blast from the torpedo, and so the entity also barely survives the blast from the torpedo, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And they're able to beam out McCoy and Spock to safety, but not Kirk.
Right, because it's been long established in the movie that the
transporter is not working. So here, finally, the gags from the beginning of the film pay off because it's not unbelievable that that's happened. Right. But anyways, Kirk is alone and he could die. It could happen.
Oh my God.
God's chasing Kirk. The two gods.
He's suddenly unable to speak.
It's true. It's like sounds like that. It's true. That's gonna be interesting.
Oh crap! I just realized.
Soundbite. Anyways, Kirk's facing face to face with God, and he's about to die. But then all of a sudden, a Klingon bird of prey appears, and we have some scenes leading up to that shows Spock kind of saying to General Cord, is it Cord?
Cord, yeah.
Cord, and he's like, "Damn it, you will try."
I'll jump in. I'll say I said it again when we were rewatching it together. When we were watching it together, that it's such a compelling scene. Kirk on a mountain, on some kind of precipice there on a rock, and he's got God or the devil behind him, and Klingons on the other side.
Yeah, it's actually.
That's really
good stuff.
It's epic in conception and scope. I think. It's just a shame, and Shatner plays it great. It's just a shame that
it wasn't executed. The effects were really the biggest critique, which we'll get right into it before we end the show. But
of course.
But anyways, the Klingon ship looks like it's it destroys a god. The
Klingons kill God.
The Klingons kill God, and
that's controversial.
And then as if there wasn't enough things to be pissed at the Klingons about, right?
They kill God.
So then they point their cannons at Kirk, and then he's like, "All right, you bastards, just do it already!" And then he gets beamed aboard.
You bastards! You threw in a little Irish
I
accent.
did. It's like I don't know where that came from, but anyways, he gets beamed aboard the ship, and there's Cord, and he reveals that
they have a new gunner.
First, he makes the captain of the ship apologize to him.
That was bad.
That was bad. It's true.
Cheesy.
I apologize.
I apologize.
Yes, that's true. And then the new gunner, of course, is Spock. Right here, Mr. Spock. And it's a touching scene, and Kirk says, "I thought I was going to die," and Spock says, "That was not possible. You were never alone." And I just got a little choked up just now. It's like a really good.
Yeah.
So then Kirk tries to hug him, and in another iconic scene, very humorous, Spock says, "Captain, not in front of the Klingons." That's something I actually quote a lot.
Yeah, you do.
I do. I do quote this movie a lot for.
It's a very quotable movie.
It is a quotable movie. It's true. Quotable. And then we have a touching scene on the redressed 10 forward set. We don't know if it's on deck 10 of the Enterprise A, so we're not sure we can call it 10 forward, but it's a forward. It's the forwardmost lounge or whatever. Observation. It's the observation lounge. Right. Yeah. And so they're having a little formal, little happy affair, and everything's great, and we get a touching little moment, and Spock is kind of sad, or well, yeah, I guess we could say sad about losing Sybok. And to console him, Kirk says, "I thought I lost a brother once." And one might think it's, as you said, he could be talking about George Kirk,
right?
But then he reveals and he says, "But I got him. I was lucky. I got him back." And so we know he's talking about Spock. And so it all ties in really beautifully from the beginning when Bones was talking about how other people have family. Why are we hanging out with each other? It's because this is their family. This is the family for them. And so it's really beautiful, really touching. And that's it. The movie ends back in Yosemite, and they're at the not the barbecue, the fireside, and this time they're all singing "Row, Row, Row Your Boat," and it's harmonious.
Spock's got his little.
Oh, that's right. It's the first appearance since this TV series of his Vulcan, the Liar. Hold on one second. Yes, we're recording. How long? A few minutes, please. Thank you. This is annoying. That's so annoying. I'm annoyed. No, I'm not. I love my mother. But my face is red, as you can see. When the door to the studio is closed, you're not supposed to have an interruption. I was in radio for many years. You would never do. It's very unprofessional.
It is. I'm sorry. But it is your birthday.
It is my birthday, and my mom did give birth to me. So ultimately, as annoyed as I am, I love that lady.
Yeah.
Can't
I love that lady too.
She's a great lady. Anyways.
I really enjoyed lunch today.
Oh, yeah. We had a wonderful lunch while we watched Star Trek 5. By the way, we watched Star Trek 5. We weren't going to watch the whole thing.
Right.
But we basically watched the whole thing. Yeah. So anyways, that's it. The movie's over. What are your... we have to have a quick discussion about where this movie fits in.
I don't know if your mother's going to let you.
No, she's not. She's really... she really likes to just... She likes to just remind me of things. She thinks I'm very forgetful.
Is that Star Trek?
It's the Twitter, yeah. It was like on Twitter.
Me. My thoughts are, well, I'm going to tell you, this movie, I have an interesting relationship with this movie. My brother and I, when we were growing up, we basically saw everything together. We have, loved the same movies and everything. And Star Trek 5 came out the summer of '89, which was one of the biggest summers. Even in today's box office, that was a huge
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Back to the Future 3? No.
Well, Batman.
Oh, Batman. That's
Lethal
right.
Weapon 2. Everything had a sequel. Back to the Future wasn't part of it, I don't think. Unless it was part 2.
No, I guess not. Yeah.
I think that one followed. But it was just an amazingly packed summer.
I do remember that.
You remember that? Mm-hmm. And it's my brother and I, we still talk about this to this day. It was one of the hardest decisions we ever had to make because the weekend came and Star Trek 5 is playing. Ghostbusters 2 was also playing. And now my dad is a huge Star Trek fan. My mother is not so much, but she really loved Ghostbusters. So we're going to the movies and our parents are like, okay, one of you goes, because my mom wanted to see Ghostbusters too. She doesn't care. She wanted to see it. And my dad wanted to see Star Trek 5. So what we wanted to do was irrelevant. It's like, but we got to go somewhere. So it's like, okay, one of you goes with one parent and one of you goes with the other. And my brother and I, we just kind of look at each other like, what? We've never done this before. And we both wanted to see both movies. So
what happened?
It was arduous. It was torture. We didn't even know what we were going to do until we got to the parking lot of the movie theater. And it was the movie theater, I want to say it was in Miami Beach. Oh. It was one of the older, it doesn't even exist anymore.
Wow, okay.
And because we were on vacation and I said,
did you exert your...
No, I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I can't. We just kind of mutually agreed that
you would see Star Trek 5.
You go see 5 and you go see 2 and
Ghostbusters. So who saw Ghostbusters?
So I have never seen Ghostbusters 2.
It's great.
I've never seen it in a movie theater. No, I've seen Ghostbusters 2, but I never got to see it in a movie theater, so which I feel is there's like a hole in me.
So your brother saw Ghostbusters,
and my brother has never seen Star Trek 5 in the theater, and he carries a great pain with that. And what I remember most about that movie is coming out and rushing to find him, and the two of us like, what happened in your movie? Let me tell you what happened in mine. And we're just like the whole trip back and like, what? That happened? Oh my God. And I'm telling him, you can't put Spock has a brother. And what? He has a brother. So it was just like this, and we never had that happen in our
what a weird
it was a weird thing.
What a weird and cool story that is.
Yeah, so I feel bad so one day I have this dream of taking my brother to see Star Trek 5 on a big screen.
It'll never be it's never going to be re-released in theaters. Unfortunately, I don't think it can hold up to modern projection systems. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. It's terrible.
And likewise, I don't think Ghostbusters 2 will ever be released.
I think,
even though I love both, I mean, I love Ghostbusters 2 as well.
Now, Star Trek 5 is widely viewed as the worst. In my encounters with other Trekkies, Star Trek 5 often makes it to the bottom of the list. It's either Star Trek the Motion Picture or Star Trek 5. And I don't think Star Trek the Motion Picture, in my opinion, deserves it, because I think it's just what I think the reason people place it there is just it can be boring and long, and like if you're not into that hard science fiction, you know what I mean? Because every other Star Trek is kind of more action oriented in some way than Star Trek the Motion Picture is. But I've heard more times than Star Trek the Motion Picture, Star Trek 5 ends up on the bottom of the list. It's not to say they don't love Star Trek 5. It's just you got to place something at the bottom, right? And I'm one of those people. As much as I adore this movie, but if I have to put the films in an order, Star Trek 5 goes on, and this is just including. This is only if you're talking about Star Trek
original
crew. From the original crew from 1 to 6. If you do the whole entire Star Trek, film pantheon, I think for some people, Star Trek Insurrection, I think you're one of those, right? Would be at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, it is.
It's at the bottom of the list. I don't agree, but it's lower. It's definitely lower on the list. And then for others, it's Star Trek Into Darkness, which I agree. I can understand it. Yeah, it's
really low
on the list
right
as
above.
Well, yeah. But like just sticking to the original crew and cast, the cast really, actually, not the original crew, because there's 2 versions of it now. But yeah. So where do you place Star Trek 5 on your list?
I also place it. It's like you said. It's not that I don't like the film, but I think it's at the bottom because it's inconsequential.
Nothing really. You're right about that. It doesn't really. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with the previous 3 films. And then their last film, Star Trek 6, doesn't really even reference this film. I mean, like, you get hints of, like, you get in this film, you get, like, hints of, like, tensions easing with the Klingons. Very minor hints of it. But then in Star Trek 6, it's almost like it erases that kind of, like, that idea. It's like.
But the thing is, and to the debate over which one is lower, 1 or 5. The thing with 1 is that you watch it. Okay, yes, people say it's boring, or people say it's not Star Trek-y enough for one reason or another. It had ambition.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's wonderful.
It's set out to be
as I get older,
the motion picture.
Yeah. Well. And as I get older, I think of it as not just a great film and very I wish Star Trek kind of had gone in that direction a little bit more. I wish we had another film that was in that direction.
Yeah.
But also just one thing I didn't even realize when I was younger, but of course now I love 2001, and it's so evident that Douglas Trumbull worked on the motion picture. It has that kind of very similar accuracy of what space. I don't know. There's 70s,
just something. It has a very 70s conception
of space,
of the future and space technology and all that. But Star Trek V seems from the get-go, and I don't mean this as an insult, but it does seem to set out to just not be. It just comes off as an episode of the show. It's kind of there's really no reason to go rush out and see it. Nothing of consequence happens, and then the humor I think also adds to that, because the humor, which in Part 5 I think was a direct result of Star Trek 4's use of humor, but where in 4 I think it arose from the situation, which is of course a classic fish out of water situation, and I think the characters, reacting to things, and it was reactive humor, right? But in this movie, they're making fun of the characters, and we're kind of laughing at them, which is, I think somehow we feel bad about it kind of afterwards. Is lost in the thing, and it's just sort of like, why are we doing this to these guys?
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense, and then again, the gags don't really work all the time.
Even the Enterprise is just the butt of the biggest joke of the whole movie, which is that she doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
And I even said it when we were watching. It's they give Kirk the pad, and I'm like, okay, the ship doesn't. Okay, transporters don't work. Okay, fine. This doesn't work. Fine. Why doesn't even the pad doesn't work? I don't understand. Was it a bad match? I don't like. It just doesn't.
It just seems like someone at Starfleet was trying to prank them. But then this awful thing happened, and now it's like they have to go. I don't know. It's just it was like a really weird thing.
Yeah, it was. It's really.
What about and sadly, I have to say that if Star Trek V somehow through Mandela effect got erased from existence, we wouldn't even know.
We wouldn't even know it. It was of no consequence.
It was of
right. It's like a TV movie.
But that being said, it is something beloved. I do love it because it has some really important character moments, and I think that's
it's got some heart.
It's got some heart. And as far as direction goes, there's not really anything I can see terribly wrong with William Shatner's direction. I think the faults in the film are more on the technical side, on the special effects side. I think that, and that was more probably budgetary constraints and things that were a little bit out of his control. I'm sure when he saw the finished special effects, I'm sure he was unhappy with them, but I'm sure Paramount was like, well, sorry, this is all you get.
Yeah, and on that note, I'll say that, and again, this is in the Star Trek V comic book adaptation. The original conception of what was happening.
Oh, the rock creature.
Were the rock creatures, which were famously, I think he finally released pictures at one point.
Right, that's right.
And they just looked terrible.
They looked really bad.
But I mean, he was supposed to be fighting these hellish rock demons, which the comic book obviously brings to life very well, actually.
Yeah, I can see.
It makes it look very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't get that
but the rock creatures actually later, when CG got more ubiquitous and better, in Galaxy Quest we have that gigantic kind of planet with those rock creatures, and that was nicely realized. So that was an interesting thing.
Right. So Shatner had
a lot of limitations.
A good vision. It just wasn't realized.
It wasn't realized.
Yeah.
And maybe that is bad direction. I don't know, but I think he did it. He did the best he could. I think Star Trek V it deserves to be a Star Trek movie, but again, it's not really consequential. I do love the character moments, especially the reveal of Spock having a brother.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people criticize, going back to Star Trek Discovery for a second, people are up in arms about never having known about Michael Burnham, but I think this film gives a compelling argument about why Spock would never have mentioned his sister, because if he never mentioned his brother, why would he
mention his sister?
And she's his adopted sister. So maybe it's just something that he doesn't think about, so
it's just Spock being Spock.
It's just Spock being Spock. So I think that's a cool kind of thing.
That is cool.
Is there anything else we want to cover before we say adios to this episode and rate it? I mean, not episode. I just called it an episode. Interestingly enough,
I feel like we have a lot, but
interestingly enough, in the Barclay episode, they also go to the center of the galaxy, and
we go. Yeah,
and they encounter these gigantic heads. And in that discussion, we talked about whether or not maybe the entity that is purporting to be God is one of these beings, and he's imprisoned by them, and Kirk and crew inadvertently let him free.
Right.
What I will say, though, is that it seems like you needed to go through a great effort to traverse the distance from where they were in TNG to get to the center of the galaxy, but from Earth to Nimbus 3 to the barrier. Center, to the barrier was all, it seemed to me, in the course of 2 days.
Yeah, it was really, even that.
And the Enterprise D is like months away from Earth.
That's true.
So I just don't know, like, that to me seems a little outrageous too, because it's like even at warp 9, it should take them probably several months to get to the center. And
there was no other starships to. I mean, really, if the Enterprise suddenly, they're at Nimbus 3, and suddenly they start shooting for the center of the universe. You try to tell me nobody at Starfleet, center of the galaxy. Nobody at Starfleet's like, hey guys, what's the Enterprise doing?
Yeah. Yeah,
what's going on?
It is a little so the movie falls apart when you really go into some of these details. It does start to fall apart.
And even at the very beginning, if the Enterprise A was in no condition to fly out, and they just wanted Jim Kirk, you're really telling me you couldn't have just taken Kirk and his command staff and put him on another ship, as we frequently saw on episodes of the original show, where you'd have some Commodore show up and he just takes over the Enterprise. Yeah. And the standing captain's kind of like, Kirk's like, oh, this guy, he's on my ship. Kirk could have done that.
I think that nowadays there's more of a willingness to put sentiment aside. But I think in the 80s, well, let's just call it in that era, maybe people were like, well, but you can't not have the Enterprise. It was probably like some kind of conversation that went along those lines. If it even took place.
I think the whole thing was conceived. I think the humor, I know for a fact that the reason Star Trek 4 was seen to be so successful was because of the humor. And remember, they wanted to put Eddie Murphy in Star Trek 4 for crying out loud.
But I think that the humor aside, Star Trek 4 also has a really great story. It
has a really
great story. So I think that ultimately where this film, again, kind of falls apart is poorly visualized, if you will, right? Like the visualizations or the visualization of the vision of the story. But then the story isn't that strong to begin with, as you said.
Well, the story could have used another pass. And... there are some parts of the story that are very strong, because I think, the character moments that we like so much, that's obviously very good. The relationship between Spock and McCoy and Kirk are excellent in this movie. It's the thing we always go back to rewatch.
It's true.
Is the relationship of these guys, and the idea of Spock having this half-brother is kind of compelling. And then at the end, when you see Sybok, you essentially, he's not really, is he really a villain? Misguided.
Right.
But then he turns around and he says, okay, no, this is the real villain.
Right.
And takes on this whatever this being is. So there's the bare bones of a good story there, but it just needed another pass of some kind. And, there's some great dialogue, we were saying. It's very, very quotable. And I think also the movie is very much embodies the kinds of things that Shatner thinks are great about Kirk. It's a very physical film.
Right.
There's action scenes aplenty. You've got that sequence where they're on horseback.
Right.
And they're storming Paradise City.
Right.
And there's a funny story that Leonard Nimoy tells where Shatner was giving him tips about riding a horse.
Oh, and he tells him to wear pantyhose.
And Leonard Nimoy didn't have the heart to tell him that, he'd been working on Westerns.
That's right.
Like, that was his first job, was a Western.
That's funny.
Leonard Nimoy goes way back. You can find Leonard Nimoy in the Old Republic serials. Wow. So he like
he just let him have his moment.
Yeah, but he never told Chad. He's like, yeah.
Well, it's it's interesting because Kirk has a similar moment where Cyborg's like, "Didn't you know these things about your friends?"
Right.
And so.
Yeah, it's a good parallel there. Yeah, so there's an obliviousness to Kirk and Shatner. But the movie is him climbing the mountain and all this. I mean, it's Kirk.
It's a Kirk.
It's him.
Yeah, this is ultimately one could say that this is the kind of like culmination of Shatner's, supposed legendary ego.
Yeah.
And Kirk. This is the film about Kirk, which he wanted to tell. Yeah. I think it's an actor's film, an actor's perspective of a character that he's been used, and every right to
good
do
or bad.
Because actually, I think in a way, Leonard Nimoy got to do the same thing with Spock,
right?
And he even got to kill Spock, and even got to like resurrect him. Spock. So here's a moment where Shatner got to direct Kirk.
Yeah,
and it's interesting because it is interesting. It is interesting because when you've played a character for so long, really, can any director tell you how to play the character? No, I don't think so. Especially not with these guys. They've all owned these runs, so it's cool.
Now I have a question for you.
Yeah,
and then we'll end it because I know you gotta.
No, I know there's a birthday party waiting for me, and I have to be respectful.
Do you feel that Generations adds resonance to Star Trek V, or vice versa?
I think that moment of Kirk's prophetic, I will die alone, when I remember when I saw Generations in the theater, that was
that's the
first thing I thought about was Star Trek V.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of like adds like emotional notes to it. But overall, I mean, like it doesn't. I don't know if there are occasions, and I can only think at the moment of like how the prequel of Star Wars, the prequel series of Star Wars, kind of now when I watch the original released, episodes 4, 5, and 6. Now when I watch them, it's like the prequels are threaded in throughout the series. Like now when there's moments where when Luke or Leia do something, I think of Padme or Anakin, and I think of all these like there's just a lot, and even to me, like I never really got very emotional in the end sequence in Return of the Jedi when Vader throws the Emperor down over the thing. I always thought it was great. It was emotional, but now it's like heavy. It's like, oh my goodness, you really feel it, and you really sense who Anakin is. Yes, whereas you don't you kind of see Anakin as an abstract idea before, where now it's like that is underneath the Vader suit is Anakin Skywalker. So I do think that that's kind of cool. So it doesn't do a lot, like that doesn't happen here in this situation, but it does definitely have like an added layer. It does bring something to it. And now when I watch Star Trek V and I hear that scene,
you think
of course I think of Kirk's demise in Generation. Although there is a version of Kirk still in the Nexus, so anytime we need Kirk, we can just go to the Nexus and retrieve him for an adventure. Shall we give it our ratings? And I'll go first this time because you get really upset if I don't give the rating you were expecting. So I'm going to say Star Trek V gets a solid 5.
We're in complete agreement.
We are.
We are in complete agreement. Yeah. It's a solid 5.
It's a solid 5. So a 5 for Star Trek V.
Yeah.
Well, Doctor, this is very special.
I know
to have you on here, and I like doing it in this format. Maybe we should consider doing more in person. I know it's quite. He had to come to the Great Barrier. You had to cross the Great Barrier.
The Great Barrier was quite a crossing.
The Doctor basically.
It was bumpy.
The Doctor lives in Federation space, and I live in
Planet of Galactic Peace.
No, I live further. I live in the center of the galaxy. So yeah, you had to cross the Great Barrier.
As always, you do.
But I'm glad you did.
Oh, I'm glad
the Enterprise held. I know there's so much more we could talk about, but I think we talked about.
We gotta go.
We gotta go.
I gotta go too. Actually.
Yeah, I know you gotta go. We all gotta go. Sometimes you just gotta go.
We just gotta go.
Anyways, live long and prosper, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Whoa! I almost dropped Spock again.
Oh my God.
Not a good thing.